Imagine a quiet orchard on the edge of New Jersey. September mist hangs heavy in the air. Two bodies lie beneath a crabapple tree, arranged as if they'd fallen asleep mid-conversation. Around them, torn love letters flutter like confessions in the grass. A minister, a choir singer, both married, but not to each other. Both dead. This is the Hall Mills murder case. Part scandal, part gothic tragedy, and the crime of the century. Well, at least until the Lindbergh baby kidnapping came along. Hey there, I'm May, and welcome back to the Dark Folio. I am so happy to be back with you this week. After last week, I just don't know. I think the universe was conspiring against me. Between my health and then all the computer problems that I was having, I just couldn't get it together. So I'm happy to be back and ready to dive into this case together. Just as a forewarning, this case is a little bit more graphic than usual. I'm still going to try to keep it PG-13, but there is some murder, some deaths, and some scandal involved. So just keep that in mind. Remember, think of this as your creepy little coffee break. Folklore, hauntings, true crime, all the delicious dark stories that make you lean in and listen a little closer. 15 to 20 minutes of the strange, the unexplained, and the absolutely fascinating. So grab your favorite mug, get comfortable, and let's dive into this darkness together. It's September 16th, 1922, 2 days after the murders, though no one knows that just yet. A young couple, Raymond Schneider and Pearl Balmer, were walking through an orchard along the Raritan River near New Brunswick, New Jersey. The area was known as Lover's Lane, a place where couples went to be alone. That's when they stumble across something that would haunt them forever. Two bodies, side by side, carefully posed beneath a crabapple tree. The man is Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall, the 41-year-old pastor of St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church. The woman beside him is Eleanor Mills, 34, a choir singer from his parish. Both are married, just not to each other. Their deaths will explode in one of the biggest scandals of the 1920s, a tabloid fever dream of illicit love, jealousy, wealth, and corruption. And to this day, no one knows who killed them. Edward Hall came from a prominent family and was well respected in the community. He'd married Frances Stevens Hall, a woman from one of the wealthiest families in New Jersey. The Stevens family, possibly connected to the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical fortune, had the kind of old money that could buy anything, including, some would whisper, justice. By all accounts, their marriage was proper, polite, and passionless. Eleanor Mills was vibrant, talkative, and ambitious. She sang in the Hall's choir and lived with her husband James, a working-class sexton and school janitor who adored her, and their two children. But Eleanor wanted more than her modest life could offer, and Edward Hall, it seems, wanted more than his cold marriage allowed. The affair had been whispered about for months. Some said it was an open secret. Others claimed no one suspected a thing until the letters were found. The scene beneath that crabapple tree was theatrical, grotesque, almost designed to tell a story. Reverend Hall had been shot once in the head, execution style. Eleanor had been shot 3 times, and her throat slashed so deeply that the wound gaped open. Her body was positioned on her back, a scarf carefully arranged around her neck, as if someone had tried to hide the butchery. But here's the detail that newspapers obsessed over for years. During the autopsy, conducted 4 years later, when the case was reopened and the bodies exhumed, it was discovered that Eleanor's tongue had been cut out. The symbolism was impossible to ignore, silencing the woman who sang, punishing the voice that spoke of forbidden love. And then there were the letters. Passionate, explicit love letters Eleanor had written to Edward, ripped into pieces and scattered around their bodies like evidence at a trial. Some were tucked beneath the bodies. Others fluttered in the grass. They left no doubt this was a full-blown affair. But here's where things get truly bizarre. The crime scene was right on the border between 2 jurisdictions. and no one could agree on who was supposed to be investigating. So it was kind of like between two counties, the city, who was going to investigate. They couldn't agree on the governing body there. So while the officials argued over territory, the scene descended into absolute chaos. And when I say absolute chaos, I mean people lost their minds. Within hours, hundreds of townspeople swarmed the orchard. Within hours. Then thousands. Now, the bodies were removed, but by that time, on the weekends, cars were arriving at a rate of 1,000 a day. People came from all over, not to mourn, no. They came to gawk, to take souvenirs, to turn tragedy into entertainment. I mean, it was wild. Vendors set up shop selling peanuts, soda, and balloons. Balloons! I mean, were people taking their kids to see where these bodies had been found? Because grown adults were just buying balloons? I don't get it, but entrepreneurs sold dirt from beneath where the bodies had been laying out. The crabapple tree itself was completely stripped bare. Every branch, every bit of bark was torn away by souvenir hunters until nothing was left but a bare trunk, like just basically a twig. The crime scene, such as it was, had been utterly destroyed before any real investigation could begin. So let's look at suspects. From the beginning, all eyes turned to one person, Frances Hall, the Reverend's wealthy, composed, steely wife. She had motive: betrayal, humiliation, scandal. She had means: Johnson & Johnson money, influence, and powerful family connections. And she had help if she needed it. Her two brothers, Henry and William Stevens, both described as eccentric and fiercely loyal to their sister. The Stevens family was old money, the kind of family that didn't just hire lawyers, they owned them. Whispers of a cover-up started almost immediately. But then there was another figure in this drama, and she became the prosecution's star witness, Jane Gibson, a pig farmer who lived near the orchard. The press gleefully dubbed her the Pig Woman. Jane claimed she'd been out riding her mule the night of the murders. Yes, her mule. Chasing thieves that she thought were stealing her corn. That's when she said she saw 4 figures arguing beneath the crabapple tree. She swore one of them was Frances Hall. She heard a woman's voice screaming, and then she heard gunshots, and she ran. Jane's testimony would become the centerpiece of the trial, but there was a problem. Actually, several problems. Her story kept changing. She was eccentric, dramatic, not exactly credible. And to make matters worse, during the trial, Jane's own mother sat in the courtroom, loudly contradicting her. "She's a liar," the old woman would mutter. The mother claimed she had never heard Jane mention anything about someone yelling, and still Jane Gibson was all the prosecution had. At first, no one was charged. The investigation stalled. The case went cold. And then 4 years later, in 1926, new evidence emerged, or at least pressure mounted, and the bodies were exhumed. Frances Hall, along with her brothers Henry and William Stevens, and a cousin, were finally charged with murder. The trial was pure spectacle. Reporters packed the courtroom. Photographers swarmed the steps. This was the trial of the century, at least until the Lindbergh baby kidnapping would claim that title a few years later. The love letters were read aloud in explicit, scandalous detail, much to the delight of tabloid readers across the country. This is when those tabloids that you see in the grocery lanes, at the store, this is when they got their start. I mean, until then, the tabloids were kind of slow moving. It wasn't a big thing. But this story right here, it boomed the tabloid market. It is when the tabloids started, sensationalizing everything. They would put in anything and everything they could think of, whether it happened, it was true or not. Well, so the tabloid readers had a lot to read because One of the things that happened in this trial of the century was when they came to the testimony of the pig woman herself. She was wheeled into the courtroom on a hospital bed, gasping her testimony while supposedly dying of cancer. It was theater. It was chaos, and it was completely unconvincing. The defense tore Jane Gibson apart on the stand. The evidence was weak, circumstantial, and poorly preserved. Most of it had been destroyed by that initial circus at the crime scene. The Stevens family had assembled a legal dream team, and the jury, they deliberated for only 5 hours. Not guilty, all of them. No one else was ever charged. The case went cold again, and it has remained cold ever since. And what's the Dark Folio without a little bit of ghost talk? So when justice fails, folklore takes over. People began to say the orchard was cursed. Some claimed they saw Eleanor's ghost wandering beneath the trees at night, singing hymns in the moonlight. Others said that on quiet autumn evenings you could hear the rustle of papers, love letters turning in the wind. For decades, local teenagers dared each other to visit the site after dark. A few claimed they saw 2 figures lying beneath the crabapple tree, what was left of it, locked in an eternal silent embrace. The Hall Mills case became more than a murder mystery. It became a legend, a ghost story that blurred the line between true crime and American Gothic folklore. And you know what I find cool? I find this cool. I studied communications and English and literature in college. So some literary scholars have even suggested that this case may have inspired elements of The Great Gatsby. Yep, F. Scott Fitzgerald was living in New York during the scandal, and the themes, illicit affairs, wealthy suspects, corruption, and the clash between old money and the working class desperation certainly echo through his novel. Well, whether or not The Great Gatsby was directly inspired by Hall Mills, both stories capture the same dark underbelly of the Jazz Age, the rot beneath the glittering surface. So what really happened that night in September of 1922? Was it a crime of passion? A jealous wife taking brutal revenge? A family protecting their name at any cost? Or was it someone else entirely? Someone lost to history, their secret safe in the grave. The staging of the crime scene, the posed bodies, the torn love letters, the deliberate symbolism suggests that this isn't random. It was personal. It was planned. It was meant to send a message. But to whom and why? We may never know. And perhaps that's why this case still haunts us, because in the end, the darkness kept its secrets. That's the Hall Mills murder case, a scandal that gripped the nation, a mystery that still baffles investigators, and a story that grows darker with every retelling. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you have a case or a haunting you'd like me to cover, drop me a message. I love hearing from all my listeners. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe in the dark.